Hello, everybody. Welcome. I can see everyone hopping in here. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our webinar today with the incredible Amanda McKinney. It's going to be a good one. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. If you are new to our Offering Tree webinars, my name is Sinead. My pronouns are she, her. I am a yoga teacher based out of Calgary, Alberta, and I also work for the Offering Tree team. And I'm often here on our webinars talking to you. If you're one of our regulars, welcome. It's good to see you here. We'll move through my slides. I'll do my little intro and then pass everything over to Amanda. So today we're going to talk about how to achieve your goals and what a timely month to do it in when we're looking ahead to 2025 and how are you going to reach the goals that you want if you've set your goals, and if you're not, we might talk about that too. So before we get started, before I hand it over to Amanda to share all that wisdom, tell us in the chat, let us know that it's working. Where are you in the world? And what do you do in your business? What do you focus on? We would love to learn about that. And some housekeeping. Drop your questions in the chat throughout the call. We will get to your questions. There will be a replay and we'll share all of the links in that replay email. And also we'll be sharing some special offers from Offering Tree and from Amanda in that replay email and throughout the call as well. And if you are new here, I want to give you a quick elevator pitch on who Offering Tree is if you've not heard of us before. We're a software that services wellness providers all across the spectrum of the wellness industry, no matter what you do. If you run group classes, if you do one-on-one appointments, if you're a health coach or you're a Reiki practitioner or a yoga teacher, Pilates, if you're a studio with multi-locations, we service all of it these days. We are all in one. You get your website and every single feature you would need to successfully run your business for one fantastic price. And we would love for you to check us out with a free trial. You can get a free trial for 14 days in the software, no commitment, and check it out and join our user Facebook group and get lots of tips on how to use the software. I can see some comments coming in on the chat, and now my chat screen just vanished. So Amanda, I'm going to stop my share so I can find the chat. There it is. Oh, hey, Kamala. In California, you're a yoga teacher. Sophie in the Bay Area. Teach only online with clients in Europe. Oh, cool. Teaching in French and English. Cool. Marilyn, Virginia, hi. Oh, and Jessica as well. Hi, Jessica. Jen Brennan. Oh, 3 people in Maryland. How cool. That's awesome. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Amanda. I'll keep an eye on the chat throughout. And let's learn with Amanda.
Hello, everyone. This is so fun. It's interesting to see 3 people in one spot. So now I'm like, do you ladies know each other? And I want to know all the things. So that's really fun. Thank you, Sinead. Thank you, Offering Tree, for allowing me to be here today. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your time, whether you're live or watching the replay. I'm so excited. I know time is so precious, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about today is our time. And so thank you for spending just a little sliver of it with me today. So I'm going to let's see how technology works for us today. And hopefully you can see my screen. Sinead, can you give me the thumbs up if you can see my screen? Fantastic. So what we're talking about today, like Sinead said, is goal setting and goal achievement. And so whether or not you've thought about your goals for 2025, or if you're watching this in the future, it is fine wherever you are. So, what I want to talk about is how we have really been taught or conditioned or just slipped into a way of setting goals that actually sets us up for failure. And as a coach who has worked with hundreds of clients, and what I realized was that when people feel like they've failed at a goal, it breaks my heart. And so I went on a mission to figure out how I could help you with setting a goal and actually achieving a goal. And so what I realized is that there was one thing that was really, really off, and we just have to flip the model. And so, what we're talking about is calculating your capacity and then setting the goal, which is really fun to talk about. And once you do this, I promise you, it's going to set you up for success in so many ways. So, Sinead briefly introduced myself, but if you and I have not connected, I want to tell you a little bit more about me so that you know why in the world to listen to me today and to hang on to the time that we are spending together. So, my name is Amanda McKinney, and I am an entrepreneur who also helps entrepreneurs, specifically people who are really like wanting to reach those goals and are feeling stuck, tired of feeling stuck, and really wanting to move through that. And so, I teach people about accountability and how to truly embrace it in a different way than you've probably ever heard before. I know that's not the topic we're talking about today, but it wraps into this completely. And so, really understanding how to hold myself accountable and how to use the tools that I have and that I teach now has helped me do things like publish a book, which a lot of people think about publishing a book for a while. And I was actually able to do that within a year. And it wasn't that life was perfect. I can promise you that. That's a story for another day, but it wasn't like life was all rosy. And so I've done that. I've had a podcast for the last 5 years called The Unapologetic Entrepreneur, which is still available, but I have closed it down and I'm launching a brand new podcast in December. And I'm sharing this because I want you to follow me over there if you're interested, but also to tell you that you can do these things. You can do the big things that you have on your horizon and the things that you're thinking, even when life doesn't make it as easy as possible. So, I'm going to give you a sneak peek on the new podcast. It's called Accountable, and it will be launching in just a few weeks. I'm super excited. Hopefully, you'll follow me over there. So, Sinead, I'm sure will share once she knows it's live because she is definitely on the list to hear more. So, there's also Instagram and LinkedIn links if you'd like to stay connected. So you can do it all, but you can't do it at the same time. And I say this to each and every one of my clients because most of the time people come over to my corner of the internet and we're working together and they say, Amanda, please don't put me in a box. I have a lot of ideas. I'm a multi passionate person. I want to do it all. And I say to them, my dear friend, you can. You just can't do it all at the same time. We have to be realistic about what we can actually achieve within a time frame, and that's really what we're talking about today. So as we go through this process, if you ever feel like, oh, don't tell me, Amanda, to pick one thing, I want you to remember this. You can absolutely do it all, but we can't try and achieve everything all at one time. You've tried this in your life and it hasn't worked, so be honest about it and now move forward with more information. So to get us all on the same page really quickly, the word goal is actually in the title of this presentation because if I said the word milestone, no one would have signed up because you'd be like, what in the world are you talking about? But when I say goal, I'm talking about the big thing you want to do. Maybe that means you want to start a nonprofit and you have no idea how in the world you'll do that. Maybe you want to write that book. Maybe you want to start that podcast. Maybe you want to make $1 million in your business. I don't know what it is that you want to do. All of it is achievable, but you might not know how to get there. That's the big dream, the big goal, the big vision, however you want to define that. But what we have to do is we have to set milestones to get there. You see this image on the screen and it's rocks. And so you see on the horizon, you see that they're kind of fuzzy. You don't really know what they look like, but the one right up close, you can see the veining in the rock. And so you want to think about that. The horizon is there, the big goal is there, but we have to set specific milestones. One of the best ways I've ever seen this said is actually in an Instagram video. And I'm going to show it to you in a moment with this idea of being optimistic about what is possible for your goals. I want you to be super optimistic and say, I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to get there one day. But we want to be realistic about those milestones. So I'm going to cross over. Hopefully, you'll be able to hear this. Sinead, if you can't hear it, please tell me, like, give me a signal or something, and hopefully we'll be able to hear it. Oh, okay. So you can hear it. I was a little worried about that. So let me see if I can click a button that allows me to. Let's try this again. Okay, let's try it again.
Job. Go back. Now, should I make it a little more difficult for him?
Oh, you
Hold
gotta
on.
jump.
It is impossible for him to make it there and give me a high five without touching the floor. Now, I know his heart. He'll try, but it's not possible for him to do so. So let's unpack this for a second, fellas. Him giving me a high five is his long-term goal. Want to make it to the league, right? Want to get that big house and that beautiful family you talked about. But those pieces of paper represent your short-term goals. So in other words, you want to go to the league? First, I got to make my middle school team, short-term goal. Then I got to make my high school team, short-term goal. Then I got to get into college, short-term goal. And then I play really well and I make it to the league, high five. But what happens when you start to remove those short-term goals?
Gets harder.
Gets harder. And eventually, if you remove them all, it makes it impossible for you to reach your long-term goal. So stop telling me about what you want to do and show me the work. Mark, get set, go.
Now, isn't that amazing? I loved that video so much that I share it with as many people as possible because what he did is he broke down and shows you visually that if you only try and make one leap from where you are today to where you want to go, it is impossible. It is absolutely impossible to achieve a big goal and just make one step forward. But that for some reason is what we try to do all the dang time. We think I want to do the whatever it was. It's the nonprofit, the growing of the business, the growing of the email list, whatever it is that you want to do, and we think I just want it to happen right now. And it would be lovely if that was the case, but we got to go to middle school first. We got to go to high school first. We got to go to college. We got to take those steps and actually do it. So that's what we're going to be talking about when we think about setting those milestones. And this is where I believe that we were set up for failure. And it's not because anyone tried to do it on purpose. It's just logically, this is what we fell into. And we need to flip the model. So I'm going to channel my inner Missy Elliott. And so if you saw the title of this presentation and you were like, is she talking about Missy Elliott? The answer is yes. I am a big fan of early 2000s hip hop. I know that usually shocks a lot of people, but I love it. And so I have fun with the way I teach. And so when we think about what we're taught to do, typically, and we just fall into this, whether it was formally taught to you or not, you think, here's the milestone that I want to hit, and then you put it on the calendar. You get some pretty post-its and you start putting them up there. And I'm a big fan of pretty post-its on the calendar, but we're missing a step in between. Because what we do when we set the milestone and then hope that it happens, it doesn't usually happen. You've experienced this. You're here most likely because you've set a goal and you didn't achieve it. And so you're like, oh, maybe I can learn something. And I really want you to see this today. So what we have to do is actually calculate our capacity first and then set the milestone. Now, I want to bring you back to those definitions once again and say the goal, this is why we're not using the word goal. The goal, the dream, the vision is the big thing that you don't know how in the world you're going to get there yet. The milestone is what we have to know, that next step. So we're talking about the milestone before calculating capacity, or calculating your capacity before setting a milestone. So you know the goal, the big goal that's on your heart. You don't have to know all the details about that. The milestone is where we have to get realistic. So when we think about capacity, I want to explain that a little bit more and show you where this came from. So back in 1982, there's a research study that came up with the Bloomberg model of performance. And I read this about a year and a half ago, and it really changed the way I showed up as a coach. Because when you understand what creates your performance, you can then back into, okay, do I have all of these things in order to get what I'm wanting, the result I'm wanting? Your performance is a function of your opportunity, capacity, and willingness. Now, the opportunity, sometimes we have the opportunity to do something and sometimes we don't. We have to recognize that. Your willingness is a whole other conversation that I'm happy to come back for anytime, but we're going to focus on capacity today. Because if you can understand your capacity, you can set realistic milestones. So, digging a little bit deeper into what capacity is, this is Amanda's definition now. So, your capacity is your time, energy, finances, and skills and knowledge. So, when you think about how you have either achieved or not achieved a goal before in your life, you probably had the time to dedicate to it. You had the energy to continue to pursue it. You had finances if that was what was needed, and you knew what to do and how to do it. You figured it out along the way. So if someone says, I want to be an airline pilot, but you don't know how to fly a plane, well, you got to figure out how to do that. You have to learn how to do that before you can actually do it. Now, we're going to talk about only time today. The reason is because if you can identify your capacity in terms of time, you are more likely to figure out the rest of them. Time is the hardest for us to be honest about, but it's actually easy in terms of it's a simple process. We just have to be honest about it. So that's what we're talking about. And I'm going to walk you through step by step today. We're talking about calculating your capacity. And step number 1 is to identify the hours you can work towards your goal. Now, I very clearly want you to hear me when I say work towards a goal. So if you say, I want to write a book, that's the goal we're talking about. But if you're also running a business right now, I think I saw a massage therapist in the chat. If you're running that amazing massage therapy business and you have clients and admin work and all of that, you have dedicated things that are already on your task list that you have to do to keep that business running. I'm not talking about work time. I'm talking about time dedicated to a specific goal. So if you, the massage therapist, wants to write a book, how many hours a week can you dedicate towards writing your book? That's what I'm talking about. This is a big difference because a lot of people, myself included, have all done this where it's like, well, I'm full time in my business. So I have 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, whatever it is. But that's not reality. I have clients, I have a podcast, I have speaking engagements. There's other things. I cannot work towards a goal 100% of the time. This is also very important to only focus on your number in this season of life. Please don't compare yourself to other people. They are dealing with different things in their life. So if they have more or less hours, it does not matter. Focus and be honest about your number of hours. So just hold on to that number. And I'm not going to give you the time to walk through each of these steps, but you probably know this one. But each of the steps you'll be able to take on your own. So step number 2 is to identify a specific timeline. So I'm suggesting 90 days. Our brain works very well in 90-day chunks. It also works with the seasons of the weather. It also works with seasons of our life in terms of there's a holiday season, there's a summer season. So 90 days work very, very well. And I would highly recommend that you look at 90 days. But you can apply this system to any amount of days. So don't get hung up on that. But my example is going to be 90 days. So the examples that I'm going to share, and I'll share several today. And I wanted you to see this, and that's why you won't have time to do it on your own, because I wanted you to see the example. Because once you see the example, it will be easier to do on your own. And we just don't have the time to go through all of it today and you doing it on your own. So we're going to look at summer. The reason I choose summer for this example is because summer throws every business owner off. Every single time I have worked with a client, this is the time that people's schedule is the most different. I know we're in holiday season right now, and you might be thinking, well, Amanda, the holidays, what about that? It's a shorter amount of time, and generally speaking, everyone, when I say everyone, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on a bucket here, but typically there are areas of the holidays that kind of the world takes off. And so it's easier to adjust. Summer is bananas. Everyone's schedule is different. And so it throws a lot of people off. Also, if you're running a business and you're like, I want to take time off in the summer, which is great, and I highly recommend it, I would also very much encourage you to do something for your business over the summer. Because most people are like, I want to I want to grow my business or get a leg up on the competition, whether you say that out loud or not. That's what you're looking to do. Do things over the summer. It can be behind the scenes, but if you work over the summer in a small capacity and just a small amount of time, you will actually move your business forward. Summer is a great opportunity. So I like to use this example. So what we're looking at here is 90 days. And what I want you to see here is how things get subtracted when we are realistic about our capacity in terms of time. So the next thing that we have to do is subtract full days. This is weekends, vacations, etc. This is what this could look like. I'm going to give you 2 examples. This is a summer fun example. This is someone has a 2-week vacation. And if you're like, Amanda, that would be nice to take a 2-week vacation, but that's not reality. I get it. But chances are you probably took a lot of days off in the summer. They just weren't consistent. So be realistic with what time you actually take and look at it on the calendar. And let's just, for example, say it's all in a row. So you take 14 days off for a summer vacation. That takes you down to 76 days. So instead of setting a 90-day goal, you actually only have 76 days to work with. Now, let's say you're full time in your business and you don't want to work on the weekends. That takes another 25 days off. So instead, this is where the wheels kind of fall off the bus when we do this backwards. Typically, we set a 90-day goal and we start putting it on the calendar like, oh, I'll do this, 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 and this. Instead, we need to look at the calendar first to realize, oh, I don't need to set a 90-day goal. I need to set a 50-day goal because now we're down to 50 days. The realistic for this example is 51 days. Now, let's say that you work multiple jobs and your business, the one you're thinking about right now, is the side hustle right now. You want it to be full time, maybe, but it's the side hustle right now. So you're working full time. So you only work on your business on the weekends primarily. Maybe there's some nights in there. This means you have 61 days off and you actually only have 29 days to work on your business. So instead of setting a 90-day goal, you need to set a 29-day goal because that's the accurate, realistic amount of time that you have. This is when things can change, as you can imagine, because you can set a more realistic milestone for that time frame. So then you have to go a little bit deeper because our life is not perfectly mapped out in one full day off. We have things that happen in the middle of the day. We have appointments. We have carpool stuff. We have lunches. And this is when most people say, but Amanda, how am I supposed to know when I'm going to have lunch with a friend 90 days out? It's okay. You don't have to know every single thing. But chances are there are some things that are routine. So we have to be honest about it. So I just want you to look and challenge yourself a little bit, but you can always use an estimate. I'm going to show you both examples. So the first is, let's say you're a parent, kids go back to school in late August, and you know that you are the taxi driver in this season of life. It's not going to be forever, but you're the taxi driver today and in this season. And so you know you have drop off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon, which wipes out the rest of the afternoon. A lot of us want to be like, I can go back home and work for 2 hours. The reality is, you know, you're running around, kids need something, and it doesn't allow you to actually do the work. So if you're more realistic about it, you can say, okay, I have half days the last part of August. And so you take half days. That's why they're smaller X's on there. That takes you down to 44.5 days. So you're looking at it and you're like, okay, now I can be more realistic with setting that milestone. Another example is if you're like, I don't have that structured of a time off. When you estimate 10%, 10% of 90 is 9 days, and it takes you down to 42 days. So that way you have some flex room in there for appointments that come up, for lunches that come up, and you can do an estimate. The key here is to not plan for the ideal schedule, but plan for your realistic schedule as much as possible. So then once you've done that, it's time to calculate your capacity. This is the fun part. It's really exciting. And I'll show you, and Sinead has the link, but I'll show you really quick. I do have a free capacity calculator. Don't worry about it right now because I don't want you going over there, but grab it because it makes everything easier. But I'll run you through the example. So basically, what you want to do is identify how many weeks you're looking at. So 12 weeks is 90 days. So that's why I have 12 there. And then let's say, how many days per week can you dedicate to this goal pursuit? Let's say you are starting your business and you can do all 5 days of the week because you're going all in full time in your business. 5 days a week. Most of the time, this is not the case, but I'm giving you giving you the example here. 5 days a week, and you can dedicate 5 hours per day. This is a massive amount of time towards a goal. This is typically not realistic. Well, I'm pointing this out so that you can catch it if you end up doing this. What's more realistic is maybe 1 day a week and 3 or 4 hours towards this goal, maybe sometimes 2 or even just 1. There's no wrong answer. You just have to be honest. So then you're going to get your total number of hours and days. I've put this in here because some people really work better with days and some people work better with hours. Whichever one works for you is fine. And then, because I know that life loves to throw us curveballs when we have a plan, we're going to put a 20% buffer in there. So you are going to actually see this go down from the 300 hours or 60 days. It takes it down to 48 days or 240 hours. So that way you have a very realistic amount of time in terms of your capacity. Now, remember, there's other things in there, but this is going to get you to the place of understanding, okay, what can I realistically do? And you're going to ask yourself this question because you're going to set your 90-day milestone. So that's that last step in here. And you're going to do that by asking yourself this question: what can I realistically do in 30 days, 45 days, 248 hours? Be very specific from that calculator. What can I realistically do in that amount of time to get me one step closer to my big goal? Because this allows you to be optimistic about your big goal and realistic about your milestones. And so now you have the keys to the castle, my friend. That is the simple steps. And I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions. So, Sinead, feel free to start gathering those. But I'll put that slide up really quickly about the calculator so you know you have it. It's amandamckinney.com/calculator. So you don't have to create the math. All you have to do is put in the numbers and you will be set to go. And just continue to remember as you think about this process, optimistic about the big stuff. Be so excited. You don't have to know all the answers. But if you want to eventually get to the big thing that you want to do, you have to be realistic about that first step, that second step, that third step, because what you're going to experience is a win. Even if you don't hit it at the exact timing that you wanted to do, you'll see progress and you'll say, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And things will happen. You're going to be thrown off your plan, but going into it knowing, you know what, I did the best I could, planning realistically. Things might throw me off, but I can get back on track. I've done hard things in my life before. I can do this. So that's what I've got for you today. And I'm excited to hear so many questions. So I'm ready for it. We've got plenty of time.
I really, really love this, Amanda. This really resonates with me because I've been trying to set time aside to do more writing for my blog and more work. I actually have an alarm set on my phone every evening that's like, go and sit down and do a little bit of blog writing. And every time I turn it off because
Oh,
I'm like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I haven't really
right.
idea of actually being able to really construct your time and then get excited about it because it's like, oh, I know what's coming up. I know when I can carve this time out. It's such a good plan.
Right. I love that very specific example. And I would also say, like, with that, to dig a little bit deeper and ask yourself why. Why is the blog so important to you that you've put it on your task list? And if you get to the point that you understand it's actually not that important, I just feel like I should be doing that.
Mhm.
Let it go, Sinead. Let that thing go. And don't worry about it because what it's making you do is you're hitting snooze or you're turning it off and you feel like you failed at something. That's
Yeah.
why you brought it up today. It's what I hear all the time. So asking yourself, like, why is this important to me? And if it's no longer important, let it go. Goals change. You know,
Mm.
my business, you and I were talking before we even got on here, my business has evolved in the 7 years that I've been an entrepreneur. Imagine if I had just hung on so tightly to the first thing I did as a business owner, I wouldn't be as happy as I am now that I let those goals go and really pursued the ones that I care about. So I want you to have all the permission to do that. But if you're like, I do want to write that blog, it's really important to me, and this is why, then force yourself to write even when you don't feel like it, even
Yeah.
just 5 minutes. Just write when you don't feel like it, because most of the time, what we're looking for is confidence before the action or excitement before the action. And that's just not realistic. It's going to be hard so many of the time. So just force yourself to do it, even if it's a smaller amount of time.
Yeah, I love it. And we'd love to hear if you guys have any goals that you're working towards. But I have a question.
Let's
If,
hear it.
if you do get thrown off with your capacity, how,
Mhm.
like if something comes up or something, a spanner gets thrown in the works, how do you get back on track? What do you do then?
Yeah. It's really about going back to this same process and understanding and like giving yourself. I read another research article about how one of the best ways to get back on track, it was really talking about procrastination, but we can apply it to so many different things. Maybe you realize you got distracted, maybe you were procrastinating, maybe life threw you a curveball and something really threw you off for a few weeks, like someone went into the hospital, you got sick, whatever. We all have reasons we're thrown off our plan. And so what we have to do is acknowledge the fact this is what happened. I shift my priorities shifted and really giving yourself that either the permission to say, okay, that happened, I'm moving forward. Or in the case of like procrastination or putting something off in some other way or getting distracted, the biggest thing you can do is forgive yourself. When I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible because it's not easy, but it's simple. It's like, okay, I just need to forgive myself for getting distracted and scrolling Instagram. Let's face it, we've all done it, right?
Mhm.
We all do it. And so we recognize what happened, or someone went into the hospital, you got sick, and it's like recognize it and then forgive yourself if you need to, if it falls into that category, and then just reassess your capacity and reset that milestone. So
Mhm.
let's say you're halfway through your quarter and something really threw you off, and it's like, there's no way. I know there's no way I'm not going to hit that milestone, and you just know it. Or maybe you don't know it yet, but you're like, something threw me off. It's going through that exercise again. How much time do I actually have? And what can I do? How much time can I actually do? And then rewrite the milestone. It's okay. I think so many of us get stuck in this like, well, if I can't hit the original thing, then I'm a failure. I can't do it.
Mhm.
But like if you set your goal and that's 100% and you could get to 75%, that's a huge win. Huge win in the term of like progress and moving the needle forward. But if you give up at 25% and think, I can't get to 100, it's like, oh my gosh, you missed out on 50% of what you can do. So it's
Mhm.
just forgiving yourself if that's needed, moving on and setting a different milestone.
I think that's huge, actually, that forgiving yourself piece, because just the sense of failure of like, oh, I didn't get it. I didn't get there again. I better just,
Right.
I'm going to start forgiving myself for it.
Yeah. And I really appreciated that research study when I read it because it's something that we can easily, like you said, and you even said something that like this is how I knew it broke my heart was when some people said, I did it again. I
Mm.
didn't do it again. And that's the thing. I think that we start to give ourselves these labels of, well, I set goals all the time, whether you call them goals or milestones, it doesn't matter. I set this and I don't achieve it. So why in the world would I do it again? And when we do that, what I have reminded myself as well as my clients is that labels can become limits if we let them.
Mhm.
And so we have to be really, really careful about what we call ourselves in our head. Very rarely are we doing it out in front of people. People do it for me because I'm their coach. They say, Amanda, I'm a procrastinator. And I say, no, 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 no. You are not a procrastinator. You may have a habit of procrastinating. We can be honest about that. But you, my dear friend, are not a procrastinator. You're an amazing human that hit a bump, and it's okay. And we can move forward because if we label ourselves as something, it becomes the limit of what we can do.
I love that. I've actually just written that down. I think
Oh,
you're going
good.
to labels can become limits if we let them. That's so good. But how much time do we know? How do we know how much time to set towards a milestone? How do we figure that part out?
The answer to that is individual. There is not a specific number of hours or minutes or whatever it is. It is dependent on your own situation. And that's the thing is like we have to put the blinders on and freaking ignore what other people are able to do. If I look on Instagram and see that Amy Porterfield is able to do all these things and she has a team of 25 and I have a team of me and some contractors, it's not possible for me to do that, right? I don't have as much of that ability, whether it's time or capacity in in any way, but it gets us in the comparison very, very quickly. So my answer to how much time is how much time is realistic for you in this season of life? A lot of people are like, Amanda, I want to grow my business, but my kids are young right now. And like the deep desire to grow their business is there,
Mm.
but the actual amount of time they have is not what they want to have. And then they feel guilty because they wish they were like, I shouldn't think that because I should want to spend time with my kids. And so that guilt comes in. No, no, no. Take the season of life for what it is and understand this is a precious season of life in all seasons. And so things are going to be different. And realizing if you can dedicate 1 hour a week towards a goal, you will make progress over time. There's
Mhm.
no wrong answer. So I hate to say that there isn't a specific number because I wish I could just wave my magic wand and say 5 hours a week will get you to your goal in 3 years or whatever. But it's all different. And just know that there's going to be different seasons within the year too. You may be
Mm.
able to spend more time in your business during the fall versus the summer or whatever it is. All seasons are different.
Mhm. That's great advice. And Camilla is saying in the chat, so many practical insights, choosing one thing at a time is
Mm,
for me.
it's
Um,
huge.
yeah. And then Cam was also saying forgiving yourself is great advice. It really is. Being honest about time is like being honest about money. I will focus on growing my yoga services through my website. My side hustles often overwhelm me.
Ooh, there's a lot there. There's a lot there, Camilla. It is. Oh, I mean, the honesty, the even just saying it out loud, like, oh, I need to be more honest about my time. You're already doing amazing work right there because so many of us aren't even aware that we're not realistic about our time. I have worked with hundreds upon hundreds of clients and I have looked back at all the data and I'm working on like pulling the data all together for an actual research that I can like share the data for because the number one barrier that stops people from making progress towards any goal, period, does not matter if it's personal, business, anything. Most people would say, it's time. No, it's not. Everyone calls it time, but it's overcommitment. You have overcommitted the time that you have. That's the problem. And we have to take ownership. And I know that's really hard to do. And that's why I have gone on this mission to talk about accountability and making it not a 4 letter word and saying we're going to take ownership and be honest with ourselves. Because the more honest you can be about what you want and the time you have to get it, I mean, you can tackle all your goals. But those two things about if you're not honest about what you actually want and the time you actually have, you'll constantly feel like you're failing, which is what breaks my heart in a million pieces and why it's like we just have to be honest about these things and recognizing it. Okay, I'm going to recognize that I have not been honest about it. I'm raising both hands. How many times have I done this? 1,000. We've all done this. This is how I know it. I'm not saying it because I'm perfect over here. I'm saying I have to catch myself in this all the time and say, how much time do I actually have to work towards this new goal? And then forgiving myself for lying to myself before and then moving forward.
That's so good. And how do you know how to set out the milestones? Like, what if you don't know what your next milestone is going to be?
That is a fantastic question. That's where it comes in of if I don't know what the next milestone is, figuring out the path is the milestone. It's pretty amazing. And so sometimes that feels a little bit vague to people, but the idea is you have to know at least a step or two in order to take it. You can't just like blindly step. Now, sometimes we aren't sure. Sometimes it's like, well, like if someone says, I want to grow my business, the ways in which you could grow your business are huge. You could, you know, pick one and go with it, right? There's tons of opportunity there. But let's take that example. Someone says, you know, I want to grow my business. And you say, okay, well, if you have an existing business, I would then ask, well, what has grown it before? And you'd say, oh, well, referrals. Great. Okay, now you have more information. Now you have data of, okay, referrals help. So, how can you increase your referrals? Then you brainstorm ideas and you say, oh, I could do this, 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 or this. Then you ask yourself, which one of these do I have the energy, the capacity, like all of that for? And it excites me. Which one do I actually want to do? Most people will be like, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And they gravitate towards social media. I think we all understand that that's what happens. And everyone says, I'm going to post more. I just know I need to post more on Instagram. And they're like, but I hate Instagram. My dear friends, please don't sign yourself up for a milestone right in front of you of something that you hate doing. That's like Sinead saying, I'm picking on you because you gave your example of writing. If you don't want to write, my gosh, please don't write, because it's going to be a slugfest for the rest of your life if you try and do that. Now, if you want to write, but you're just thinking it has to be perfect, or you're overthinking it too much, or it's all of those, if it's really something you want to do, but you're really like scared to do it for some reason, or it's hard to do it, but you really want to do it, that's when you have to push through. That's when you need to push through. If you just hate doing something because it is awful and it sucks the soul out of you, take that off the dang list. That's the permission I'll give to everyone, is like, please don't do that. You became an entrepreneur to do things you love and to have a great life, to balance things out, and whatever balance means to you. And so I'll bring us back to the actual question now that I was on a soapbox of letting things go. It's identifying what the next step is, would be the first milestone you would set. So let's say if you had an hour a week and you said, you know what, in the next 30 days, I want to know what my next milestone is. I don't need 90 days to figure that out, let's be honest. But in 4 hours, I feel like I can figure that out. 4 hours, 1 hour a week for 4 weeks is 4 hours. Okay, so week number 1, I'm going to really understand what I want to do and why I want to do it, and write about that and really get clear about it. Because what's going to happen is you'll take that time to write and you'll think about it, because your subconscious is going to continue to think about it. So you'll add to that document most likely for the rest of the week. Then that next time, you're going to brainstorm ideas how to do that. And you're going to think about that. And then the week number 3, you're going to pick a dang thing and pick the path, and know that you can change the path at any point. And you're going to pick that path. And then week number 4, you're going to create the plan of what the next milestone is. And you're going to see that progress each and every time. I know it sounds really simple when I lay it out like that. I recognize it's hard, but that's why giving yourself time to think about it, because your subconscious will really work on it for you.
I like it, because I think we set ourselves up for failure by just aiming for that big goal. And Jessica said earlier that the video that you shared is so great in helping abstract dreams become more concrete steps. That's the perfect thing about it, isn't it? Being able to visualize how you're going to get there.
Right. Thank you, Jessica, for saying that. I love that video. And part of me is like, dang, why didn't I think about that? The other part is it's so powerful to see him doing that with kids, that I think even if I had created my own video, I'd still use his, because it's so powerful to teach that at a young age, and how wonderful. I hope all of those kids in that video hold it and bring that forward in their life, because like Jessica's saying, like, oh, it had a moment for her. And I hope they had that at 7 years old and can move forward in massive ways, because those smaller steps seem like we want to gloss over them at some point, but it's like they're critical, because that visualization of trying to jump from one side of the room to the other is like, well, of course that's impossible. But yet we're like, I'm making $0 in my business, but this year I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to do it. And it's like, well, I don't know who's going to wave their magic wand, but if you do that, please talk to me. I'd love to have you on the podcast if you go from $0 to $1 million in your first year of business.
Like when you see other people who are successful, like the sort of example that they gave in the video, that you want to try and become this superstar player, you don't picture how they got there. You're just like, wow. I know my
Right.
kids, oh, I want to be a YouTube star, but they don't even do anything towards it. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to be really wealthy because that's what happens. It's like, well, let's get a bit more realistic about how that you progress there.
Yeah. And I love that example because what you did there is you said what they thought they wanted, right? Which they may do. And if they do, I hope that they get it, right? But what came after what you said was they want to be wealthy. So
Yeah.
that's the real thing is I want to be wealthy. So then it's like, well, how many ways could I be wealthy? There's a
Mhm.
lot. YouTube's just one option. And so that's where that comes in of like when I'm working with people, I always trying to figure out why do you want that? There's no wrong answer. If the answer is I want to be on the cover of a magazine because I want to be acknowledged for my research, right? There's no wrong answer here. It's I want to be wealthy so that I don't have to suffer because I saw my parents suffer.
Mhm.
Or I want to like it's these types of reasoning that it's like, that will help you push through the hard stuff because it's going to be hard. Like
Mhm.
if someone wants to be a professional basketball player, it's going to be really hard for that to happen. But you got to
Mhm.
shoot all those shots. You got to do it and miss a lot. Sports is a really great analogy because when you really think about anyone who has done well in the sports arena, like, sure, they probably have more talent than a lot of people, but the practice is what made it a take it to the next level. There's a lot of people who have talent that never make it to professional sports because they didn't put in the work.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so true. Well, this is awesome, Amanda. Does anyone have any questions? Drop them in the chat if you do, or if you need an example, if you want to give an example that you need a bit of guidance on. But I love this. I've taken notes for myself, and I like the idea that you actually sit down and spend time looking at how much time and being so realistic about how much time you have, because it
Mhm.
that kind of sense of achievement, that sort of realism that you can actually get there.
Yeah. I mean, when you spend the time, it will never be wasted to look at your realistic calendar and to see it. And you can do this on a broad scale. Like we're recording this in November of 2024. And so if you're like, you know what, I really want to set myself up for success in 2025, look at the big things that you have. One of my clients said she really wants to take 2 weeks off in February and she wants to take a month off in the summer. Well, we're already planning for that. We're looking at the fact of, okay, if those are the most important things to you, put it on the calendar first. And then we work backwards from, okay, this makes sense. Because if you want to take time off, all of you are like service providers, I believe. Maybe there's some products in here, but you have to think through how am I still going to make money? Or how do I make money before so it'll carry me through that time? But it's remarkable, you can figure it out. People do this, like, I've worked with tons of people who are going on maternity leave, and they're like, "Amanda, I just wanna work through how I'm gonna take 3 months off as an entrepreneur because I don't have paid leave." Okay, great. Like, there's ways in which to do that, and so you can set yourself up for success. And so if you look at 2025 and put those big rocks on there, you've probably heard the rocks, pebble, sand example along the way. The big things, the vacations, the things that you really wanna prioritize, which is typically more personal. So I would say do that personal stuff first and then plan those launches in your business. Because if you do it the other way around, I promise you, you're going to overcommit yourself because I've done it and I've seen it too many times. So Jessica, I believe, has a question. So I'm going to read this real quick.
As a somatic embodiment practitioner, I also love how that video incorporated the body and connecting with the mental process of goal setting and achieving, and your visual examples of marking X's on the calendar helps my brain to focus on the time that is available rather than the time that isn't. Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica, for that affirmation. I've worked hard and I'm sure I'll do better every time I teach it. As this has been one of those things where it's simple, but it really helps. Like you said, the visual of seeing on the calendar. And that's why it's like I'm a big digital planner in terms of like My calendar runs my day. I'm not writing something down in a planner every day. I'm doing it digitally. But when I sit down to look at the time I have available, I am using like a paper calendar and marking things off because there's something about it that really does change the game. And so sharing that digitally was the best way I could do that. So I'm very happy to hear that it was successful today.
Yeah, and what a great teacher you can see that guy is, right? Because of the way he
Right.
used the body to, it resonates with everyone, and I think especially probably kids as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of my teachers. I'm going to make sure I share a couple of links here in the chat that I promised earlier. So here is a discount for Offering Tree. If you're new to the software, you can get a discount today through Amanda's link. It's 50% off the first 3 months or 15% off an annual plan. And I want to make sure that we share the ways to follow Amanda as well.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I'm going to share your Instagram here, Amanda.
Instagram is great. I'm a big fan. I don't post as much as people probably think other people do, but I'm on stories and I do respond to the messages. So I check it. It's definitely there. Um, and the new podcast is coming out in December. I'm very excited about that. And there'll be ways for people to, if you're interested in sharing how you navigated a tough time and held yourself accountable or used some support along the way, that's who I want on the podcast. So I'm putting it out there. A lot of people are like, I want to be on more podcasts. And so look for the opportunities. And if that fits yours, there'll be a form on my website that allows everyone to apply to be a guest because I'd love to hear your stories.
Yeah, and I've just shared the website link there, and I'm just going to share the capacity calculator one more time in case
Thank
anyone.
you.
And yes, thank you so much, Amanda. This was awesome. It's always great to see you, and you've always got such great intel to share. So I hope everybody here live and for the replay found this as useful as I did. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And thanks so much, Amanda, for being here.
Thank you to everyone at Offering Tree. I love Offering Tree. I can't recommend it enough. It is wonderful. So thank you for having me back.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. Everyone's saying thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.